Thank you, sir. So I want to welcome Doug. He's going to come up for Allie, who was not able to make it today, and talk about LifeLab BioDesign.
As Lisa said, I am not Ali Makazoum. Ali has been trying to get here. He is based in Lebanon. We learned of him through a global association that we're part of with accelerators, and he had gone through an accelerator in Beirut. He was going to look at California being the base for his North American market, and we convinced him to come to Michigan. So once he does arrive, we will be bringing him back up here to northern Michigan to meet with several people, and I'll do the best I can to describe what they're doing. They obviously, like many of us, realize that our population is growing, the supply for food is declining, or our ability to produce reliably is unreliable with weather conditions, soil conditions, and water, whether there's too much or too little. So yeah, again, we've got, arable land is always questionable. We have pesticides that we don't want to continue using on our food for a variety of reasons. And so what they have done is looking at creating a indoor growing platform that is heavily reliant on IoT and machine learning and artificial intelligence on a modularized basis. And what they've achieved, and again, looking at the harsh environment where they live in the Middle East, where you've got limited water, you've got bad soil conditions and extreme heat, they've created an indoor growing platform with 95% less water usage, less labor, and then again, you don't have any guesswork because it's all indoors. And that was something else that was a selling point to the upper Midwest, is we kind of are interested in that. In California, they're not so much interested in indoor growing. So if you look at a traditional greenhouse, we've all seen many of these, whether you're inside a greenhouse to try to extend your growing system or outdoors, you're utilizing the flat land. And we're all starting to get used to seeing indoor growing platforms. And what they have created is a system that's modular in nature, so it's less expensive to assemble. It's not a structural component of the space that you're utilizing. And then each module can actually be isolated to create the growing environment ideal for that crop. They have validated about 200 crops thus far. And with that, we've all seen lettuce, tomatoes, strawberries are very common and typical. Microgreens, obviously, we've seen a lot of. But what they've done is taken it that step further, where they're getting into vine crops. They're starting to look at deep root crops as well. And compared to traditional growing, you can see some of these statistics here where they've, again, decreased water consumption, increased the volume by 30 times the volume by utilizing up and not just across the ground. The modules look similar to this. They've got this basic cube, which is what they've been working on. They're moving to the higher grade platform, which will enable these other products to be grown. And then Jarvis is the brains behind the outfit. So really someone who doesn't even have a farming background, with the right software, controlling the growing environment, anyone can really grow their food. Sales of software is going to be their one-time revenue, buying the equipment, setting it up, and getting all your starting supplies. And then on a recurring basis, they'll have software support, and then also even the growing plats where the seeds are prepared and ready to be installed for growing. So target markets, we see opportunities obviously for herbal medicine, pharmaceuticals, foods. We all want local grown year round. Everybody wants great strawberries in February and January, and something that maybe isn't coming from Mexico or California or Florida. So these give us those opportunities. They provide all the training necessary. Again, they're looking at different industries where this can be deployed. And one of their main competitors is a company called Farm Freights, and they've done extensive analysis to see what the platform looks like, what the services are that are provided, and what the outputs are at the end of the day. And given all those criteria, and again, that's something that was developed in a region of the world here, that wasn't under the same constraints and hurdles to overcome that LifeLab needed to overcome. So looking at, right now, we're in this 5th generation mode, and then by 2020, they're hoping to have a platform deployed here in the US that we can demonstrate the product and looking at a national deployment model. So I knew I wouldn't take 5 minutes because I'm not Ali, and I'll try to answer questions. This is being recorded, is that correct? So if there's questions, I will make sure that Ali gets those questions, and we will post those responses someplace. So does anybody have any questions about this kind of a growing platform? Yes?
Do you put that in connexes overseas, or are you burying this environment, or how do you actually do the building itself?
So you can put it into any building. The question was, where does the platform go? You can put it into any building space. It doesn't even have to be climate controlled. One of the things that was really amazing to me is they talked about it in each of these different modules, and these are all open for getting photography of some of the crops they've grown. But you could actually isolate the climate within each module, that you could grow, say, pineapple in one module and green beans in the module right next to it. They've talked about being able to replicate the ideal growing climate for any crop. So if you say, let's say up here is the perfect growing climate for cherries, and you want to grow cherries down in Texas, they could take all the historical data of the climate here and replicate that, although you don't want to put trees in here, but you could replicate that growing climate right here in Texas or somewhere else, or we could, again, replicate the best growing climate. So the building itself doesn't need to be climate controlled. Each of these would be controlled for lighting, airflow, temperature flow, water, everything that it needs. Yes, sir. I'll get you next. Yes, sir, back here.
Let me know if I'm barking up the wrong tree, but are you missing the environmental component here? When you were bringing up your comparison chart, your disparity chart, are you saving a lot of water in this process as opposed to your typical process?
Yeah, they're able to reduce the water consumption by 95% of typical farming operations or greenhouse operations by recirculating and filtration processes. And again, I will make sure, so the question was the water utilization, what exactly does that look like? So I want to reiterate the question so that Ali can answer that directly when I get the recording. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So is there revenue generated only from selling these modules? Is that really the business?
No, you'd have the modules themselves. You'd have revenue also coming from the updated software platforms, or let's say you decide you want to expand your farming operation to include different crops. You could say, hey, I want to grow these other 10 things. You could upgrade your software platform to expand your market. So there would be that support. And then they're also talking about preparing the seeds, so those would show up in the growing platform that you would get it, you'd peel off the top, you'd set it into the module, and your plants would start growing. Yes, Russ?
So, with the legalization of cannabis, I would suspect that this is ideal for grow operations in legal cannabis.
There has been conversation about that, absolutely.
Do you have any sales in that area?
They don't currently, and I know Ali has been looking at that market. And again, the question was cannabis, so we'll make sure that Ali addresses that more formally for you. Yes?
Fruit trees seem like it would be hard to grow in that kind of setting. How is it achieved with such a crop that needs such a large?
Sure, yeah, you don't want to utilize your vertical space for a tree indoors. They are looking at blueberries and other fruit bushes that could be done in dwarf size, and we are aware of some research also that's going on to look at either possibly cherries without trees or maybe dwarfed trees so that you could produce tree fruits in an indoor platform, because you do want to maximize your vertical space as well. So yeah, it would depend on what you want to grow and how much space you want to dedicate to it. Yes, sir.
There was a presentation some time ago about trying to do something like this to create the perfect tomato. I think this was in Japan and maybe some other things. But what they found was you can create the perfect tomato, but it doesn't taste good because the sun never touches it.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, I think, again, so the question was, lighting and the flavor profile not being exposed to sunshine. I believe because of the evolution of lighting technologies, that we've talked about the flavor profiles, the taste, the crunch, the texture all needs to be matching to have it be market accepted. So again, I'll make sure Ali addresses that when we post a response online. Thank you. Looks like we're basically out. One quick one maybe. I'll talk to you about that.